Welcome, everyone, to the MCiM Transforming Your Career in Healthcare panel event and information session. My name is Tatiana Hamel. I am the Associate Director for the MCiM program. I'm joined today by my colleagues Veronica, the MCiM Operations and Student Service Manager, and Lisa, the MCiM Education Program Coordinator. We also have a wonderful group of panelists joining us today. They are part of our alumni community. As we have a packed hour ahead of us, you have some time to ask us questions directly at the end of our presentation. However, in the meantime, please feel free to type your questions in the chat if you have any questions while we're speaking. Otherwise, please mute yourself. So without any further delays, I'm going to call our panelists to introduce themselves. Panelists, please, when I call your name, provide your current role, what your background is, and what areas of specific interest you have within medicine, technology, and business. Can we start with Natalie?
Hi, I'm Natalie, and I'm from Singapore. Very proud member of the inaugural cohort of MCiM. It's currently 8 a.m. my time. Hello. I am a consultant cardiologist at the National Heart Center in Singapore, and my role in cardiology as a specialist in cardiometabolic disease, as well as multimodal cardiac imaging. However, all of us in MCiM are multidimensional. My other role is that of co-founder as well as medical advisor to White Coat Medical in Singapore, a Southeast Asian digital health company with regional networks. My interest in healthcare and technology, as well as business, stemmed from my role as an entrepreneur in the digital health space. And I think in the last maybe 6 months to a year, all interest and eyes have been on the role of generative AI and its utilization and monetization in the field of medicine. That has been what has interested me of late, but also digitally building physician communities, as well as facilitating better user experiences for all stakeholders in the ecosystem has been part of the work that I do, to which MCiM has been integral. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalie. Teja, would you like to go next?
Yes, I have the tough job of following Natalie's impressive resume, but I'll do my best. My name is Teja Chimudapati. I work here at Stanford, actually, and I was part of the second MCiM cohort that most recently graduated in June. I'm the Translational Research Manager for Stanford Ophthalmology. I started off as a research coordinator about 5 years ago, and part of what I do is basically facilitate precision medicine and our genetic testing program for our patients from bedside to bench and back. I applied to MCiM originally because I felt I had a lot of experience on seeing the clinic side and the healthcare delivery side, but felt like I could use more formal training and exposure to the business and technology side. So I'm happy to talk more about that as we go along with the panel discussion. Currently, I'm in that translational research manager role in ophthalmology. We publish on a lot of different things, and we also work on individual precision medicine initiative within the department that we hope to bring to the rest of the university. We partner a lot with private industry, as well as sometimes clinical trials will come to us, and we do therapy trials and try to get patients into the right and therapies for all. So happy to talk about ophthalmology if anyone here is interested as well.
Thank you, Teja. Maria, would you be okay to go next?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria. I moved to the Bay Area from London, where I was an internal medicine physician for the last 5 years. I spent most of the time actually on the front line of COVID, working on the intensive care units and also acute medicine units. And I have made the decision to pivot out of clinical medicine and focus more on the delivery of care overall and also the healthcare systems overall. So during MCiM, I was actually working at a femtech startup here in the Bay Area, focusing particularly on medical tourism in the fertility space. And then from that, again, I pivoted recently and I'm starting a new job with McKinsey and Company this September as their specialist healthcare consultant. So I'm more than happy to talk to anyone about career pivoting, particularly coming from a clinical background into non-clinical roles, or generally trying to find your path in life.
Thank you, Maria. And Matthew?
Hello, my name is Matthew Abraham. I am currently at Google Health. I am part of the team that builds clinical products. Prior to Google, I was at a large health system, so specifically Stanford. I was a senior director part of the technology and solutions umbrella, digital solutions umbrella, overseeing clinical deployments across ambulatory, oncology, and transplant departments. And before that, I was in management consulting for about 7 years. One of the things I'm passionate about is building clinical products, specifically in the population health, precision medicine, and digital health space. And that's been my focus over the past decade or so. So yeah, that's where I am, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. So based on feedbacks received, we have crafted a few questions we would like the panelists to answer, which might help this group to gauge a better understanding of what MCiM offers and how you can leverage what you learn in the MCiM program into your careers. Let me start by asking Maria a question. How can MCiM empower students to navigate the evolving landscape of healthcare, drive innovation, and unlock new dimensions of career growth and employment opportunities, in your opinion or experience?
That's a great question. I'll give my best shot trying to answer that. And I think for me, what MCiM's really allowed is to venture outside of my comfort zone and really dip my toes into the other fields within healthcare. So as I mentioned earlier, I come from a clinical background. I practiced as a physician for all of my professional career, essentially. So going into MCiM, I didn't really know which direction to go in, and doing the practicums actually really allowed me to try different things. I'm sure as anyone moving to the Bay Area, my initial thought was, I have to go work at a startup because that's what everyone does when they come to the Bay Area. So that's my initial thinking. So I found a startup, I partnered with one for my MCiM practicum, and quite quickly realized that actually it's not something that necessarily fits my personality or fits my skill set. Particularly the startup I was working at was at a very early stage. So for me, actually, that personal growth and learning came from trying different things that MCiM has allowed me to do. And I think for me, I just realized that it's not a personality fit. I'll do better at a large organization. And again, that was such a valuable life lesson because I wouldn't have gotten that otherwise without trying things first. So I'd say first and foremost, use MCiM to just, put yourself out there, connect with different people, try different things, learn different things about yourself, but also your skill set and where your role is within the society and the community and the people you meet as well. So I think for me, that was the most important thing I probably took away from MCiM. And one of our program mentors, Kate Bloomfield, who's one of the professors of the course, was talking about your failures resume. And what she means by that is that a lot of the time when she hires somebody for a job, she doesn't just look at the amazing experience that somebody brings, but she actually asks them as well, tell me about the things that you tried that didn't work out for you. And that really just stuck with me because, I think historically we're so focused on saying, I've done this, I've achieved this, I've done all these amazing things, but actually sometimes it's almost as important, if not more important, to actually talk about the things that you've tried and didn't succeed in, or you tried and you didn't enjoy doing, because that shows real depth and insight and perhaps a level of emotional intelligence as well. So I think for me, I really took this year to do all these things, take the classes I wouldn't otherwise take, do things I wouldn't otherwise do, meet people I wouldn't otherwise meet, try different things. So I think for me, that's where a lot of my learning came from this year. Just kind of putting myself out there and doing the things I wouldn't otherwise do and learning about myself as I go along. But I think also the MCiM allowed me to just acquire this wealth of knowledge in different aspects of healthcare, anything from, finance to human resource management to innovation and technology and data science and all these things that I haven't really done before. So I think by providing all the different flavors of different things, you can really start to narrow down your focus and figure out what your next steps in the career should be. I hope that answers the question.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I would like to direct the next questions to Matthew. Matthew, what distinct opportunities did MCiM provide to its students that sets it apart from other educational programs? And how did it contribute to your own personal, academic, and professional growth?
Yeah, great question. And I'll try to provide a little bit of perspective in terms of my personal journey. I think personally for me, I'd say it's fair to assume that I learned as much as I could from my classmates, as much as I did from my professors. It was a cross-section of perspectives in terms of people from different backgrounds, people from different industries, people with different experiences contributing to that thought process. It's also important to note that MCiM does provide an avenue in terms of industry expertise, by way of saying, we had venture capitalists, we had industry thought leaders, we had co-founders of companies, we had consulting firm partners, we had a ton of people available to us in terms of either being mentors or providing their thought leadership in terms of how they've seen the industry. And that was super helpful to me. And to Maria's point earlier, I was laser focused on depth of knowledge earlier in terms of my previous job. What MCiM did provide me was that breadth of knowledge. Something I didn't have a lot of exposure to before was finance. So that was super helpful, just getting a course on finance, being able to read financial statements of companies going public and whatnot. Another one that I could think of fondly was the strategy class from Linda and Tip. That was phenomenal. We also had a class that was laser focused on marketing, but product marketing, again, brand new to me. I'd taken courses in marketing before, but product marketing was brand new to me. And all of that helped think through a very different perspective, helped me think through a very different perspective that I didn't have exposure to before. I'll also specifically note the course that we had from Nigam Shah on data science. That was an eye-opener to me in terms of what to look for and what not to look for. So these are just random examples that has helped me incredibly in terms of fine-tuning my career in terms of what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, what I'm not good at, and what I don't want to pursue. So it really helped hone in on things that I want to do with my career and in my job role. So from that perspective, I would argue that was super helpful. And then just lastly, I will sum it up by saying MCiM does provide access to a ton of individuals, people who are well accomplished in the industry, people who are thought leaders in the industry. I would strongly urge anyone and everyone participating in the program to leverage those resources, reach out to folks, accept them as mentors, and help them be your North Star, so to speak. Hope that helps.
Great. Thank you so much, Matthew. These next questions I would like to ask Natalie. Natalie, do you think you can elaborate on how MCiM played a pivotal role in you acquiring business and technology acumen in order to reshape and positively impact the healthcare sector? For example, how can professionals leverage this knowledge to drive innovation, improve patient care, and reduce costs in healthcare?
I think I actually did a concurrent MBA together with MCiM. And I will say that while the MBA gives you the core financial knowledge needed to evaluate companies and understand what unit economics means, what MCiM brought that was distinct and unique to the program was the lens of healthcare and specifically health technology beyond anything else you would find in any other curriculum when it comes to evaluating the business proposition of any solution. What I learned from MCiM in my last 2 to 3 years immersed in the space of healthcare, the business of healthcare, is actually that you may have a good idea, but if it is not going to be a sustainable one, it's not going to translate into a product that's going to make it through a life cycle of adoption and to scalability. And these are words and terms that I learned from the distinct ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship unique to Stanford and Silicon Valley. So I would say that sitting from the perspective of both a creator as well as an executive in a position to acquire all the information that Matthew had mentioned, because we were classmates in the inaugural cohort, from understanding where the product would sit in your tech stack, to understanding how the unit economics of that product would make sense in your overall balance sheet. This is what MCiM equipped me to do. Being able to evaluate a product as to its feasibility for adoption, as to its scalability commercially, from the lens of the executive. Now, having said that, we were all given options to do practicum. And this is when I thought, okay, I would be a second-time entrepreneur, roll up my sleeves and apply those same principles I would use as, say, an acquirer of businesses to create a product that I thought, I would love. And to Maria's point, your practicum is where you get to try and fail without shame, and where you get to go out there and meet people and learn from their experiences outside of medical school, outside of MCiM. And in order to build my product for practicum from the ground up again, and to do it in an ecosystem different from Asia, where I came from, I went outside of my class. I went to the 6 other different schools on Stanford campus, MFNE, CSB, to learn and understand how people thought, spoke to VCs in the Valley to see what they would value. So sitting on the other end of the table was an opportunity that MCiM afforded me, that allowed me to build a second product, try, iterate, pivot, and fail. So I guess in summary, what I'm trying to say is that if you're going to choose something for further education, where you do it is important. What it teaches you that is unique to the program is important. And as both the previous panelists have alluded to, who you surround yourself with is equally important. And one more thing I would like to say is actually a lot of gratitude to the supporting team, Veronica, Lisa, and Zoe, before Tatiana came. They really facilitate your engagement with the program and your tutors. And administratively, it's incredible because having that administrative process smoothened out gives you a runway, an unlimited upside to go and explore and be whomever you on a blank canvas who you want to be. It's a very unique program because most of us in healthcare, we're siloed into being specialists and practitioners or consultants or people who create products. But MCiM breaks down those barriers and allows you to be your own unique person, your own unique product. Hope that answers the question to some extent.
That was a great answer, Natalie. Thank you so much. We have one question for Teja now. Teja, what key advice would you offer to prospective students who are enthusiastic about MCiM? Specifically, how can they effectively research and evaluate that this program aligns with their career aspirations and goals?
Yeah, I think that's an important question for all prospective students to consider. I think Natalie just did a good job, and Matthew also laying out what MCiM specifically gave them. And I think it's important to understand what MCiM is and what it isn't. A lot of people, and Natalie can probably speak more to this, have a background in an MBA program, can tell you how it's a little bit different than an MBA program. I would say understand that there are lots of online programs out there. There's executive education programs, but what makes MCiM unique is the in-person learning alongside with your classmates, doing a lot of those group learning projects that can then translate into real world ideas that you either spin out into your own product, or that can be spun out through a class that you're working on with your classmates. So personally, I found MCiM especially impactful because I was already linked to Stanford and the Bay Area, but Stanford specifically. I had been working for a couple of years in a research job. So all the professors that we were learning from, they're not just teaching, they all have active roles on projects that they're leading, whether through the School of Medicine or at Stanford Healthcare. So to me, the difference was that I knew I could learn from them and get on projects with them to actually make impacts even while I was a student and potentially take that beyond. So I would say the 3 most important things for me were, 1, to decide whether you're looking to develop your current career path through MCiM or use MCiM as a way to pivot your career. And that's something that I came to the program with. And I always like hedging, so I hedge for both. I work in academic research, as I said, but I also wanted to use the MCiM practicum as a way to do something that was completely out there, which is what I did with my practicum. So during the classes for the class projects, I worked in the data science class. We picked a question that directly affected the kind of care that's gotten in ophthalmology and a way we could optimize that care. For my practicum, I picked something related to space health, which I had never explored before, and I'm happy to talk more about that later if anyone has questions on that. Number 2, I'd say get involved early. Someone in the chat was asking about how early did you find your practicum? What's the timeline like? I'd say reach out to everyone as soon as you can, with the professors in the program, as well as your classmates. I felt like that was something different about MCiM than I found with any other program. So there's a true cohort feeling within it. And finally, I would say plan out where you want to be in 3 years and 5 years. Look up what that role currently requires and see how MCiM can fit into that role. See what you can get from MCiM potentially to get yourself ready for that big promotion or career change or whatever you're looking for. So when I asked myself those three questions, especially that third one, I found that MCiM was the best fit for me over any other program I found, whether it was an MBA or something online or some kind of executive education. I felt like I could bridge that knowledge gap I had with business and technology.
Great. Thank you so much, Teja. I have one more question before we move into a live Q&A. And this question is open to anybody, any of the panelists that would like to answer. In your experience, how have specific classes within MCiM effectively imparted strategies to synergize business, technology, and medicine? Can you provide examples of how these skills have empowered you to tackle complex healthcare challenges post-graduation? You can just unmute yourself and share.
I can start perhaps unless somebody else wants to jump in. So when I was applying for my job at McKinsey, I had to go through multiple rounds of interviews. And I recall clearly how in one of my interviews, I basically used some of the frameworks we've learned in the managing organization operations management class with Professor Schenker. And essentially, my whole interview was focused about optimizing delivery of a particular service. And I was like, well, you know what, let me just break this down how we do it in class and think about different factors and vectors that could be modified using different technologies, etc. So I think I found actually some of the classes directly applicable to both getting hired and also, I guess, my future career as well. And I think also just interacting with different teams within your cohorts, because I'm assuming it stays the same for future cohorts, where we change our teams that we amongst our classmates for every class, for every quarter for different classes. You just learn so much from your colleagues as well. And again, just acquiring that emotional intelligence really helps in real life as well. And working with different people, their different working styles, their different, how you resolve conflicts, how do you come to conclusions? That's just applicable to everyday life, both personally and professionally as well.
Yeah, I'll jump in as well. I will use, I think one of the other panelists brought this up before, the data science class was a real eye-opener for me in terms of just how deep one can dive. And having a professor like Professor Shah explain the state of data science and the kind of tools that are available really impacted the way I do my job now. In fact, since I graduated from MCiM, we've started an active partnership in my department with Atropos, which is a company that he helped co-found that uses real world data from patients to help drive clinical trials, clinical research in general. So we have several publications, and in fact, we've kind of come up with this new tool that uses both proteomics that we get from patient samples in the OR, along with real world evidence data that we gather from the medical record through our partnership with Atropos to develop a new precision medicine pipeline. And that directly came out of one quarter in Professor Shah's class, sitting through and understanding exactly how we do that whole process through a company like Atropos that's spun out of Stanford. So data science was a huge thing. Working with patient cohort data through that class and what I learned was huge. And I'd say Professor Rosenbluth-Kate's biodesign class. I find myself in using biodesign concepts in just everyday things in my job. The needs finding process, understanding where the fit is, thinking about things in terms of like value versus cost, opportunity, all these different frameworks that we learned in biodesign, I think can actually apply to a bunch of different parts of life, not just through a single project at work. So those were just two examples of classes where I find myself drawing from in my day-to-day.
That's great. Does anybody else want to share anything with this group before we move to open questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm happy to share also that I concur with a few of the favorite classes that were mentioned. But for me personally, the strategy class that we started school with is something that the Fortis 5 forces is something that was instrumental in my understanding of how things work and hang in a big system. And together with that class in the first quarter, that was Kip and Linda's class, we had Kate Rosenbluth's class on biodesign. And as Teja rightly mentioned, these principles of design school and design thinking, which started at Stanford and crossbred with the biodesign class, really do facilitate a lot of the need finding processes, both in work and in life. And I think the hardcore data science classes, as well as healthcare operations classes by Professor Nigam Shah and Professor David Schenker, are instrumental to the work that I do today. In fact, I brought a lot of work from Singapore over into class and continued to use class to refine products, refine processes, and actually saw in real life how Dr. Schenker's advice led to increased efficiencies in my own business. So that was an incredible moment to experience and share with my classmates as well.
Yeah, just sharing a couple of different perspectives that I thought was helpful in my case. One, I think most importantly, the course by Nigam Shah, Data Science, was an eye-opener to me. I say that because back when I was taking the course, I was also working at Stanford, and we were in the middle of deploying AI tools, mostly in the digital scribe space. But the truth is, we didn't really know what questions to ask and what questions not to ask. It was also a model in which the vendors knew a lot more than what we did. So just going through the class, understanding how these models are trained, what they're trained on, how do you train them, how do you test them, how do you deploy them in the field, what are the gaps, what are the shortcomings, that really helped solidify our understanding in terms of the success rate and the ROI model. So that was super helpful back then. I'll also say the classes that Linda and Tip took early on really helped think through what is it that health systems look for. You might have the greatest solution on earth. You might be trying to solve for the greatest problem that physicians are facing. Ultimately, who's the buyer, right? Who's paying for the solution, and how do you operationalize that in a clinical setting? These are very important considerations. And unless you understand that through perspectives of people who are actually signing off on this, you'll end up falling short in terms of getting the product through the door. So that's another perspective. And then just lastly, product market fit. I think Natalie hit this on the head in the sense that all along through the course of our product marketing class, our professor kept focusing on just a couple of different things. One is there a market for your product? And can you monetize this, or can you make money of this? So much so that it's sustainable, right? It works in itself, works by itself. So there's a lot of different nuggets that you'll pick up through the course of the curriculum and different courses that you'll find to be extremely useful, not just day one of your graduation, but like 3 years from then, 5 years from then. And knowingly, consciously or unconsciously, you'll end up using them without actually knowing these are actually valuable frameworks that you learned in class, either from your professors or perspectives from people like Natalie and Teja and Maria, in terms of classmates who bring a wide variety of perspectives and experiences to the class. So that's been my experience, and yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. This is incredible. We do have a little bit of time for any questions. I see that our participants are asking questions on the chat, and our panelists have been answering them. Thank you so much for doing that. But does anybody else would like to ask a question? Oh, Octavia, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks for letting me speak. I'm actually in the Bay Area. I'm actually a graduate of UC Berkeley, and I am in a unique field. I am a social worker and community health worker. My question for the panel was, could you give me a little bit more detail on would I be an appropriate fit for this program? I have a passion to address things like health disparities, intergenerational trauma, systemic exclusion, and violence in the communities. And so I was wondering, would this program be a fit for someone with my background, and how it would incorporate my experience, how my experience would incorporate into this program? Thank you. And that question's for anyone in the panel, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I can kick it off. I would say it certainly, I would say your background certainly would fill a need that is out there that that I think you appreciate, definitely needs to be addressed. We had one of our classmates, Megan Aluhu, actually did a case report as her practicum, looking at a former company that she worked at from that sort of lens. And I think there's certainly skills and experiences that you can get out of MCiM that would directly translate into you using this with your background in your current role. But I think it would also depend on what you specifically want to get out of MCiM. If it's something, one way to go about it would honestly be to look through the different classes and try to find what can I get out of this class that would match what I'm trying to do in my career to continue the work that I'm doing, or to enhance it. It could be a collaboration through Stanford. I know that DEI is something that the program takes really seriously, and that we learn in our class how we can contribute positively to. One example I'll give is that even in our, I think it was our data science class, one of the things we talk about is, actually it might be a different class, it might be Dr. David Schenker's class. We talk a lot about different AI machine learning models out there. We talk about how, in one example, we looked at what many of you may know already, a paper that showed how machine learning data and training data sets can carry an inherent bias depending on the source where that data is coming from. And so we talk about the real world implications of that, how that can contribute to disparities, both in socioeconomic areas, as well as in how patients get healthcare. So I certainly think that there's a huge opportunity for you to bring your perspective to the program, if it's something that you find that you'd want to do. I certainly think you'll have to make some connections there and pick and choose how it would fit you. But in terms of opportunities that are available to you, I think you would be a great addition if you choose to apply.
I appreciate the response. It was really focused and detailed, and I'm really interested in research in healthcare. I've already met with Tatiana just to see if it was a good fit for me, but I appreciate that. That totally answered my question. And thank you, panel, so much for having me.
Can I add on a little bit to that answer that Tej just gave? That's okay, Tatiana?
Of course.
And sorry, Tej, I think it's a really great question. And I think the real beauty of MCiM is all the different people that make MCiM. And I think, I don't think it has to be a prescriptive thing where you can only come if you are a physician or a technologist, et cetera. So I think I think for me, one of the best things I've learned from the MCiM program is all the people that make up MCiM. So to people from different backgrounds, different career paths, I absolutely loved that. And also, I think you can always put on your own interest lens onto all the projects you're working on. So for example, Tasia, who is one of my classmates, is deeply passionate about space in general, which you may think it's very niche, but actually I think he's managed to weave it into pretty much every project he did throughout MCiM, just because, if he'll be working on an innovation, he'll weave in space innovation. His practicum, he brought in space. Similarly, I'm very passionate about women's health. So for a lot of my projects, I try to focus specifically on innovation with women's health. I did my practicum on women's health. So I think it is possible to bring a personal own interest and just weave it into the program. Assuming your teammates agree with that. But it is definitely possible, and I think your unique your experience and background is what would make you a fantastic addition to the MCiM cohort.
Thank you, everyone, for your answers. We have a second part of her presentation happening right now. I really want to thank you for her panelists for joining us today, for sharing your experience with MCiM. You were incredible in the program. We miss you very much. So yes, thank you. You are welcome to leave now, and we will move on into her information session.
Thank you, alumni.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I will kick off this presentation because we have just not a lot of time, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. So as I mentioned, I'm Tatiana Hummel. I'm the Associate Director for the program. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Veronica Schultz and Lisa Sandoval. We are here to help you through this process and through your application. Today, we will talk a little bit about the program, like a quick overview of our curriculum, the format of the program, who will benefit from MCiM. We'll talk about her Stanford and MCiM community and how one can apply. And we'll have a little bit of time, hopefully, for some questions in the end. Let's start with her curriculum. MCiM is a full-time master's degree, as you heard from her panelists. Is a program that provides a flexible format ideal for working professionals. Our interdisciplinary curriculum blends the core business disciplines with data, health technology, and ethics. Our program offers a set curriculum, and all courses are specialized sessions for the MCiM students. During the program, we will take about 6 unique courses in business, 6 unique courses in technology, including biodesign course and a social entrepreneurship and innovation lab, which is tied to the required practicum. You have an ethics course that's taking each quarter to prompt the students to consider the intersection between business and technology from a different perspective. Very quickly through her curriculum, this is a sample. In the summer, you will take the bioethical challenges of new technology classes. You also take classes like in Principle of Business Strategy, Quality and Safety in U.S. Healthcare, Accounting for Managers and Entrepreneurs. Again, on the autumn, like in the fall, you continue taking the bioethical challenges for new technology class, and then you start working on your practicum. You can start working earlier, but it's usually in the fall that students start working on the practicum. You also take a class in biodesign for digital health, a class in health information technology and strategy with Dr. Schumann, who is the director of the program, and a marketing science and patient engagement class. In the winter, same classes, bioethical challenges, and the practicum class, we add to that the healthcare operation management, leading and managing healthcare organizations, and corporate financial management. And finally, in your last quarter in the spring, again, the bioethical challenges class, practicum in data science for medicine, as well as modeling biomedical systems. This is a sample of her curriculum. The class format is students complete their MCiM courses within, the Stanford quarters within a year. During the quarter, there are 6 on-site weekends where students come together on campus to attend classes. These occur on Friday and Saturdays. On-site weekends occur roughly every other week. During the weeks when class is not held, students continue to work through coursework, assignments, group projects, etc. This is a sample of our on-site weekend. You usually will arrive between 8:30 and 9 a.m. We'll have coffee and tea for you. You have your first session. We have a little break, and then you have your second session. Then you have a bigger break for lunch. And then you have your third and fourth session in the afternoon with a small break. If we're bringing a guest lecturer or we have an event, which we pretty much have every weekend, and if it extends over past 5 p.m., we'll bring you some dinner. And then the same schedule for a Saturday. We try to keep our events on the Friday so you can leave, and some people have to commute or go back home or get on a plane on Saturdays. But if we happen to have an event on a Saturday, we will let you know in advance. We usually let you know the week before. What type of professional backgrounds does MCiM attract? MCiM is open to individuals from a variety of professional backgrounds. We aim to have a student body that brings a diverse set of perspective and experiences to the cohort. MCiM students are proven or emerging leaders with a desire to transform healthcare through the power of technology innovation. So in our experience, the professionals that apply or the students that apply for the programs, they come from like healthcare professional background or a healthcare technology professionals, physicians and clinicians, medical or graduate students, aspiring entrepreneurs, career changers, business and technology professionals. So basically from a large variety of backgrounds. We value diversity and inclusion. Oops, I'm so sorry. MCiM celebrates our professionally, demographically, and culturally diverse cohort. Our students are at different stages of their lives and careers, lending depth and overall learning experience and fostering communication and team building skills that the professional marketplace rewards. Our program is committed to developing a diverse cadre of leaders that will advance diversity, equity, and inclusiveness as they go forwards with the skills obtained through the program into their careers. The benefit from being part of this community, as our panelists mentioned, MCiM hosts events both as part of our own sites as well as during the typical campus weeks. All these events are hosted at times and platforms that reduce barriers for busy students to engage. Events range from guest lectures to industry panels, professional development workshops. MCiM also has developed an exclusive mentor program with more than 50 mentors from various industries that's available to our MCiM students exclusively throughout their program and after their graduation as well. Beyond the opportunities the MCiM team specifically arranged for our students, the students are also, they can freely engage with the Stanford campus and community on campus events. They can, arrange their own guest speakers. They can take elective courses. And there's many other ways that they can be part of the community and enjoy their time at Stanford. This is a little snapshot of our cohorts, our class of 2022, our class of 2023 that just graduated, and our class of 2024 that will graduate next June that just joined the program. The MCiM application. So MCiM follows a very robust and holistic admissions process that welcomes applicants with a diverse range of experiences and backgrounds. Applicants will be asked to demonstrate their academic readiness for a rigorous intellectual experience and their topical interest in this exceptional program. Applicants should note that this is a summer term start only program. Our application portal will open in September 15 in 2023. So we have 2 rounds of application. Let's say you apply in September, but you are unable to complete all your items or have all your letters of recommendation submitted by November 10th, then you are moved to the second round. So all students that are able to complete their application by November 10th will be interviewed, evaluated, and will hear an admission decisions earlier. But if you're unable to complete your application by November 10th, you can still submit your application by January 12th. That's our final deadline. The only difference is you will hear about our admission decisions a little later in the process. All students admitted either like on round 1 or 2 will start together in the same cohort in June. The required application materials are unofficial transcripts. We would like to hear from you all the essay responses from the essays we ask you. We would like to see your CV, your resume. Your statement of purpose is really important to us, and we ask for 3 letters of recommendations. They can be from academic backgrounds for your professors or from professional backgrounds from managers. TOEFL scores, if applicable to you. If you don't know, make an appointment with us or send us an email and we'll let you know. And an application fee. MCiM is an eligible graduate degree at Stanford for the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program. So if you wish to apply for the Knight Hennessy, please keep in mind that their deadline is October 11. Students must apply for both Knight Hennessy and MCiM separately. So you can already apply for the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program right now, and then apply for the MCiM when we open our portals.
Tatiana, before you move on, we did have a question in the chat just in relation to the time management essay specifically. And just to answer that one a little bit further, so the question was just about the context of that time management essay. And so obviously, as we've expressed in this meeting, MCiM is a full-time graduate program, really shaped for working professionals. So if you look at your day-to-day, seeing how your schedule can actually fit with the outline that we have in our curriculum, which requires, a Friday and Saturday. It's really just you emphasizing how you can fit your working schedule with that. Or if you don't plan to work during the time that you are in the program, just sharing a little bit more on how you would manage your day-to-day in the program on campus or in the Bay Area, however you see fit. So that's just a little bit more elaboration on that question that was asked in the chat.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So our application, as I mentioned, we will start accepting applications on September 15th. That does not mean that you cannot start working on your application, preparing your application right now. If you are able to visit our website at mcim.stanford.edu, we have prepared an application checklist for you. Is right under the admissions tab. You can download all the required documents or required essays and statement of purposes and instructions are listed there. It's the same questions and everything that we're asking is what you're going to be asked to submit when you apply. So you can start preparing all your materials already by downloading this checklist and looking into that. You may also, at that time, schedule an appointment to talk to us if you have any individual questions or anything you would like to share with us. If you go into the chat with MCiM and make an appointment, I'll put the link on the chat later as well. You will meet with one of us and we will help you through this process. Questions that I get asked a lot. Are international students able to apply for this program? Yes, international students are welcome to apply. But please refer to the graduate admissions website to ensure that international academic credentials meet the minimum level of study required to apply to a graduate study at Stanford. Stanford requires TOEFL scores for all applicants whose first language is not English, and Stanford requires all non-US citizens or registered permanent residents to obtain and maintain appropriate visa statuses. Does the program require GRE? Is the minimum GPA require? There is a minimum GPA requirement. So we do not, MCiM does not require GRE, but if you have taken the GRE and you would like to include in your application and you believe that will help you establish your academic readiness, please do so. There is a space for you to upload extra documents during your application process. Our admission process is holistic. We don't rely only on these types of metrics when we're considering her candidates. So we want to see like your ability to manage the intensity of the program. So we get to know our students during the application process. So we don't focus only on GPA and GRE. And is that what is the total approximately tuition and fees for the program? So fees for the program are set by the university, but we estimate that during your 4 quarters of the program, students will be taking from 11 to 18 graduate units. The estimated tuition cost for the entire program 4 quarters will be around $77,575 for the next academic year. Stanford fees and miscellaneous expenses are not included in this estimate. MCiM is a CME accredited, so physicians might consider using CME funding towards cost. Some Stanford employees might be eligible to use STAP or tuition reimbursement funds towards MCiM. Stanford does not offer tuition discounts for internal Stanford employees or faculty. Financial aid is provided through the Stanford Graduate Financial Aid Office. Stanford Graduate Financial Aid is not available for international students. And there is no difference between in the state or out of state. Stanford has the same tuition for everybody. We are also developing a page in our website to help you find ways of funding your education. So we recommend you to visit our website in the next coming weeks for more information if you have any questions. And finally, we're going to open to some questions. I am going to put on the screen our final slide with our email, our website, and I will also put this information on the chat. So if you have any other questions, or if you would like to chat with us in person or via Zoom, but individually, just make an appointment to talk to us. And I will stop sharing my screen, but we're open to questions right now. Oh, I see there's a lot of questions going on in the chat.
So Lisa and I have been addressing a few of these questions while you were going through your slides, Tatiana. But what I wanted to highlight is someone asked me, what is the admissions committee who serves for MCiM? What are they looking for in an application? What would prove someone to be a strong candidate for MCiM and show that they have the competencies necessary to succeed?
That's a fantastic question. The way we prepare our committee, it's very similar to the way that we are preparing you right now. We will prepare a presentation to talk to them about what MSN, what her program is looking for in a candidate. We tell them, they understand her core values. They are collaborators with her programs. They are usually work very closely with us in several abilities, and so we just prepare them pretty much the same way we prepared you today. We tell them what MSN is looking for in a candidate, what kind of candidates, what kind of diversity we're looking for, what kind of sets of skills. But it's not, there is no secret sauce. They are not going to there's nothing that you can do that I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, of course, but it's nothing like I can tell you today that will just make you jump on the top of the line. But we just do prepare her committee in a way that when they are interviewing her candidates and they're asking a series of questions, they are trying to gauge the candidate, how prepared they are to join the program, what their goals are, how they're trying to fit MCiM within their career, and how MCiM will benefit them, or how they will just what skills and abilities they will bring into the program.
Yeah, and also to add to that as well, Tatiana, our committee also tries to gauge to see your own background and how, because our cohort is an intimate group, how your expertise in your industry or your background can really benefit the classroom experience as well. So as Tatiana mentioned, there are just so many different aspects that our committee works with, and all of them are also from various backgrounds as well. So through everyone taking the time to get to know your application and get to know you, it really is a holistic process of just making sure that this is the right fit.
Thank you so much, Tasha and Lisa. A question from Rahul. He mentions, does the tuition include any housing expenses? Unfortunately, Rahul, no, the tuition does not include housing expenses. Students are responsible for providing their own housing or sourcing their own housing during the program. However, I will say that MCiM students are eligible to apply for Stanford housing. So they could apply to live on campus. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
Sure. Another question from Brittany, do all Stanford grad programs use the same online portal? Asking so I can set up expectations for my recommenders. The answer to that is yes. However, you are only eligible to apply for one program at a time. So if you are applying for MCiM, you cannot concurrently apply for multiple programs at the same time with the same recommenders. It would have to be a different application entirely, or perhaps a different year. So keep that in mind during your application.
Just to add to that, Veronica, actually, you can apply for only one graduate program per academic year.
Thank you. I had another question that was a personal message, but since we haven't had too many other questions, I'll answer it. Letters of recommendation do need to be submitted before the final application date. So they can be submitted at any time during the application period when it's open. However, if we do not receive all letters of recommendation by the final deadline, your application will not be considered complete. So we try to give prospective applicants as much time as possible so that they can work with their recommenders to make sure that they get those in before the deadline.
Yeah, and just to go along with that too, Veronica, there's a question that our team gets often about, like, what is the difference between round one, round two? And I will say, just putting in your mind that, submitting everything by round one is just like a true goal, just in case your recommenders do not submit their letters on time. So I would say that that's just something to keep in mind, that, that they have to submit them themselves. You are not able to submit those letters of recommendation on their behalf. So because you're passing that path over to them. You never know exactly what their time looks like, what their schedules look like. So that is one of the reasons I would recommend just applying or trying to make sure that you fit within round one, just to make sure that you're giving your recommender some time. In the off chance that you do not make the deadline for round one, you can then push over into round two. So that is just something else that I'd love to add to this discussion.
And to add to that, too, since another question came in, there's the only thing after you submit your application that you can still update in your application is the letters of recommendations. Let's say you request a letter of recommendation and the recommender didn't submit it, you can then remove the recommender and add another one. And yes, you're able to log in into your application and see if your recommenders submit the letter or not. But you might not be able to see the content of the letter depending on how you made your choices when you applied.
We have a great question from Octavia as well. Does the admissions committee take into account that there are many different varieties of healthcare workers? I would be an applicant with many years of healthcare experience, but I've noticed many candidates are already MDs. So Octavia, I would encourage you to look at the student profiles of cohorts 1, 2, and our current cohort 3. And I will say that we have a variety of healthcare professionals from all backgrounds, not necessarily MDs. In the past few years, we have increased our nurse representation quite a bit. And for the first time this year, we have a student who is a DPT. So their background is in physical therapy. So that was exciting for us to have someone for the first time come from that background. So does not have to be an MD or specifically any sort of type of patient-facing individual. You don't have to have any clinical experience at all to be a good fit for the program. It's the holistic application that we're looking at and seeing how this program would be used to either jumpstart or pivot your career in a way that makes sense for you as an individual.
Thank you, Veronica. That was perfect. We have another couple minutes. Is there any other questions? I'm sorry, I haven't gone through all the chats. It's been a lot, but is there any other questions that anybody would like to ask or have answered? When does the fall quarter start? It's usually towards the end of September. That's a question from Brittany.
Yes, Brittany. So we'll start fall quarter, September 22nd, I believe is our first day of on-site this year, or for fall quarter. I just put a link into the chat that includes our student profiles. I encourage you to peruse. It includes a student spotlight. Every month we feature a student either from our current cohort or from our alumni to talk about the incredible things that they're doing during their time with MCiM or during their post-grad. And then it includes all of the bios of our current students and alumni as well. I thought I saw a hand raised. I'm not sure if that person disappeared, but feel free to raise your hand again if we missed you. Oh, Brian, please feel free to take yourself off mute.
Oh, thanks, Veronica. I had one last question again, too. It was, let's see. I know, just looking at the profiles and everything, too, I remember how it was mentioned that there are business professionals within the program, but have there been any specific individuals that worked within the revenue cycle or managed care realm within healthcare?
I can't think of oh, we did have a student in our first cohort who their primary career started in accounting, which was, I think, as close as I can remember from the top of my head. So I apologize if there's someone more closely related to that. But we do have one of our faculty members, Linda Hoff. She is the Chief Financial Officer of Stanford Healthcare, the system on campus. And so she really recently just talked about revenue cycles in her class on Saturday. And so I know that it's addressed. And we do include some business strategy and accounting and finance classes for students who don't necessarily have that background to make sure that everyone has the skills they need after they leave the program.
Thanks, Veronica.
Thank you all. Some great questions. I will peruse the chat after this, and if anything was not answered, I'll reach out to you. We have an event coming up next month on generative AI, and I would like to put that also on the chat right now and invite you to register and join us. So let me just share that link with you in 1 second, and we are at the time.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Here's the link to join her next event. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Really happy to see you all, and we'll be following up with a recording of this session later in the week.